fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty hi-yo silver, the Lone Ranger. With his faithful Indian companion Tonto, the daring and resourceful masked rider of the plains led the fight for law and order in the early western United States. Nowhere in the pages of history can one find a greater champion of justice. Return with us now to those thrilling days of yesteryear. From out of the past come the thundering hoofbeats of the great horse Silver. The Lone Ranger rides again.
Come on, Silver. Let's go, big fella. I'll Silver. Aye!
The massacre at Little Bighorn was still front-page news throughout the country when the governor of a western state received startling information from several trusted Indian scouts. The governor sent at once for his confidential secretary and said grimly,
Jackson, read this. Chief Blackhawk has jumped the reservation.
Blackhawk? That renegade's always been a troublemaker.
He's planning serious trouble now. He's recruited a band of war-crazed savages to go on the warpath to follow up the victory over Custer. Blackhawk wants to prove that he, too, can win a great victory over our soldiers.
That may mean another massacre.
Yes, another and another. Unless Blackhawk and men like him are stopped at once.
Where's Blackhawk now?
I don't know exactly, but I hope to find out.
How?
Jackson, have you heard of the Lone Ranger?
Yes, sir. I've heard a lot about him.
You're going to meet him.
What? I meet the Lone Ranger?
Yes. I'll give you all the information I have available. Then I want you to leave for a ranch near Laramie that belongs to a woman named Clarabelle Hornblow.
Hornblow?
She and her top hand, a man named Thunder Martin, are friends of the Lone Rangers. According to secret information I received, the masked man will be at her ranch within a week. I'll give you a letter to him. He'll recognize my signature and trust you.
A few days later, when the Lone Ranger and Tonto stopped at Clarabelle's ranch to see their friends, the man named Jackson was waiting for them. The Lone Ranger read the letter of introduction quickly. Then Jackson told about Blackhawk's activities and the governor's hope that the masked man could capture the renegade.
Does Blackhawk have guns and ammunition?
We've learned that he's well supplied with Winchester rifles, but fortunately he has no ammunition yet.
He'll get it as soon as he has a chance.
Yes, and then we'll be in real trouble.
Well, where is he now?
We don't know exactly. Friendly Indian scouts told the governor he's camped somewhere in the Arrowhead Mountains.
He could hide there indefinitely without being found.
The governor hopes you'll be able to find him.
We'll do our best.
He asked me to remind you that General Custer didn't know where the Sioux or Cheyenne were hiding when he went to the Battle of Little Bighorn.
I'll remember, and be careful.
Good. The governor telegraphed Washington asking the Army to cooperate with you. But we don't know how soon help will be available.
Tonto and I know the commandant at Fort Dixon. He'll cooperate with us.
Oh, Fort Dixon isn't far from the Arrowhead Mountains.
That's right. We'll go there at once. Goodbye, Jackson.
Goodbye, and good luck.
After leaving Clarabelle Hornblow's ranch, the Lone Ranger and Tonto traveled steadily. By mid-afternoon of the next day, they reached the foothills of the Arrowhead Mountains.
Me not think we find tracks of Black Hawk, Kimasabi.
He's too smart to leave a trail anyone could follow, Tonto. But if we go to the fort, we'll be able to learn when the next supply train is expected.
You think him attack wagon train?
That would be the easiest way for him to get ammunition.
Kimasabi.
That gunplay sounds as if it's coming from the valley.
And their ranch is there.
Come on, Tonto. We'll see what it means. Come on, Silver.
Come on, Scout.
A short time later, the Lone Ranger and Tonto drew rein out of the line of fire beside a small ranch house. From the shelter of huge rocks, 3 ranchers directed their fire toward a corral some distance away. Several Indians lay motionless near the corral gate, while others returned the fire of the concealed riflemen. As the masked man swung from the saddle, Tonto exclaimed,
Kimasabi, look. 2 braves over behind rocks.
Yes, I see them, Tonto. They're going to attack those men.
And fellas behind rocks, not see 'em.
Open fire.
We wound both Indians.
The ones near the corral have fallen.
That does it. We got all of them. All but 2 of them. Someone else gunned the Redskins behind us.
Boys, look.
A masked man and another Redskin.
My mask needn't alarm you. I'm not an outlaw.
You saved our hides, and we're grateful. I'm Elkali Page. I own this spring.
My name's Ute Tatum. And this bearded fella's Floyd Barber.
I'm glad to know you. Tonto, take a look at those Indians, see how badly they're hurt.
Let me look at them.
What started the gunplay?
Well, for the last week, the ranchers around here have been losing cattle and horses. We figured by staying on guard, we could catch the rustlers.
From the rocks over there, we could watch Alkali's corral. So the 3 of us took our places and waited.
We saw those Redskins cross the valley. We came straight to the corral to steal more of my horses.
We opened fire on them.
Hey,
and
look.
then-
When the Redskins behind the rocks getting to his feet. He's making a run for his horse.
Why, he'll get away.
Let him have it.
Hold your fire. He's wounded.
He'll be dead in a minute.
Let him go.
Not on your life.
It'd be loco to turn him loose.
Don't raise that rifle, Floyd.
What's the idea of drawing on me? I thought you were on our side.
He's getting away.
That's what I want him to do.
You double-crossing skunk. I should have known better than to trust a masked man.
Now that you've got us covered, I reckon you'll rob us.
I'll holster my gun as soon as that Indian's out of shooting range.
Yeah, he's out of it now. Yeah, thanks to you, he got away.
All Indian dead but this one, Kimasabi. Him named Lame Deer.
Is he one of the men we wounded?
That right. Him not have gun or knife now.
Good. Bandage his wound, Tonto.
You going to let him go, too?
No. We'll turn Lame Deer over to the soldiers at Fort Dixon.
Kimasabi.
Yes.
Me question Lame Deer, and me find out him come from Black Hawk Camp in mountain.
Did he tell you how to find the camp?
No.
Me never tell how to find Black Hawk Camp.
You don't have to tell me, Lame Deer. Your friend who got away will do that.
Little Crow not talk.
But he'll lead me to Black Hawk's hiding place.
It not do any good to find camp. There plenty braves there. Them kill white man.
I'll take that chance.
Soon Black Hawk get plenty ammunition for guns. Then him kill all white men in valley.
What?
Drive soldier out of fort.
I didn't know Black Hawk was anywhere near here. Last I heard that renegade, he was on a reservation.
He jumped the reservation. He has men enough with him to do everything Lame Deer said he would.
Then he's been stealing our cattle to feed his men.
Taking horses to mount them.
Yes. Fortunately, he hasn't ammunition enough to go on the warpath yet.
An army supply train's due to come through here in 3-4 days on the way to Fort Dixon.
Black Hawk know about supply train. It carry plenty ammunition for a Winchester rifle.
You're bragging too soon, Lame Deer. The Indian who left here was wounded. He'll be anxious to reach camp as soon as possible.
That's so.
I hope he'll not take time to cover his tracks.
But even if you find the camp, you can't take on an army of Redskins. And if they discover you before you have a chance to get away, they'll kill you for sure.
I'll leave a trail for Tonto to follow.
Maybe it's better me go after Indian Kimasabi.
No, Tonto. You ride to Fort Dixon. Turn Lame Deer over to the soldiers. Explain the situation to the commandant and ask him to bring as many men as possible to the mountains. My tracks will lead to Black Hawk's camp.
You're taking a mighty big chance, mister.
If Black Hawk isn't captured before he attacks the wagon train, Every white man in this part of the country will be killed. I'll see you later.
Adios, Kimasabi.
Adios.
Your wound bandaged now, Kimasabi. You mount horse, ride with Tonto to fort.
Monsieur!
I'll saddle my horse and go after the masked man. He's going to need plenty of help when he gets to Black Hawk's camp.
I'll go with you, Alkali. You better ride the other ranches around here. Tell the folks to head for the fort. They'll be safe there if trouble starts.
All right, Floyd. Tonto, I hope you can convince the colonel at the fort to head for the mountains on the double.
Me know Colonel Morgan. Him old friend, Lone Ranger.
The Lone Ranger?
That's what masked man called.
Great sakes alive. I didn't know that. Doggone it. Hey, you said you know Colonel Morgan.
That right. We know him long time.
Morgan's not at the fort.
Huh? Well, where'd him go?
To Washington. He left Fort Dixon 6 months ago.
Oh. Who in command fort now?
A brass-bound drill master named Hoxie. Yeah, there go Alkali and Floyd after the masked man.
Where's Sergeant Jim Flanders?
He's still at the fort.
Then me not have any trouble. Sergeant Flanders know Lone Ranger and Tonto.
Colonel Hoxie doesn't listen to Sergeant Flanders or any other experienced Indian fighter. Lame dear, what are you laughing at?
Maybe Colonel at fort not believe Black Hawk camp in mountains. Then soldiers not go to camp to capture Indians. Then white men who follow a little crow be in plenty trouble.
Lame dear, keep quiet.
He's right, Tonto. If the soldiers don't head for the mountains, Alkali and Floyd and the Lone Ranger will be killed.
Me get soldier somehow.
The curtain falls on the first act of our Lone Ranger adventure. Before the next exciting scenes, please permit us to pause for just a few moments. Now to continue.
Musha. You get off horse.
When Tonto reached Fort Dixon with his prisoner, Sergeant Jim Flanders saw him and hurried to greet his old friend.
Well, Tonto, doggone, it's good to see you. Where's the Lone Ranger?
Him on way to Black Hawk Camp in Arrowhead Mountain.
Black Hawk?
That's right. Black Hawk Camp and Mountain with plenty brave. Them plan to capture wagon train of ammunition. Them make war on white man.
Great Scott.
Lone Ranger hope find camp. Him tell me come here, get soldier, follow him.
Is this Injun one of Black Hawk's men?
Him name Lame Deer.
Come on, I'll take you to Colonel Hoxie. We'll tell him the story.
The small, impeccably attired colonel was in his office. Sergeant Flanders introduced Tonto and urged his superior officer to listen to the Indian. When Tonto finished explaining the situation, Colonel Hoxie turned to the sergeant.
Do you believe this fantastic story, Sergeant?
Yes, sir, of course.
Story not true.
Shut up, Lame Deer.
Let him speak, Sergeant.
Black Hawk not in mountains. Him not near here.
Of course he isn't.
He's on a reservation.
But he jumped the reservation, sir.
How do you know?
Well, Tonto said that
Sergeant Flanders, these two Indians contradict each other.
Lame deer not speak true.
Lame Deer claims you're lying.
Colonel Hoxie, sir, Tonto's a friend of the Lone Ranger. He and the masked man helped Colonel Morgan several
I never
times
heard of the Lone Ranger. As far as Colonel Morgan's concerned, he's no longer in command here.
Well, then you don't intend to go to Arrowhead Mountain.
I do not. Come in. Well, Corporal?
Colonel Hoxie, a military rider has just arrived from Fort County with special orders.
Show him in. You're dismissed, Sergeant Flanders.
Come on, Tonto.
No. Me not leave fort without soldiers.
You'll leave the fort or stay here in chains.
Lone Ranger say bring soldiers.
Captain Barton reporting, Colonel Hoxie.
One moment, Captain. Sergeant Flanders, these two Indians
Black
must...
Hawk maybe kill Lone Ranger if soldier not come.
I told you before I never heard of the Lone Ranger. And as for Black Hawk...
Colonel Hoxie, Black Hawk and a renegade army are hiding somewhere in Arrowhead Mountains.
There you are, sir.
We received the intelligence from Washington by telegraph. Since you are not in telegraphic communication with Kearney, I was ordered to leave at once to bring you the information.
Go on, Captain.
A masked man, known as the Lone Ranger, has been trying to locate the Indians at the request of the governor.
The request... Oh.
Black Hawk must be captured before he secures the ammunition he needs to go on the warpath.
Colonel Hoxie, sir.
Sergeant Flanders, call the corporal of the guard to put Lame Deer in chains.
Very well, sir.
We'll take men and start for the mountains at once.
Yes, sir. I'll give the orders right now.
Meanwhile, the Lone Ranger, Alkali, and Floyd were traveling deeper into the mountains on the trail of Little Crow.
You were right, mister. He's not taking time to cover his tracks.
I hope the polecat lives long enough to lead us to his pals.
His wound isn't serious enough to be fatal.
Well, what do we do when we find the camp?
Stay out of sight until the army arrives.
I hope Tonto brings Colonel Hoxie on the double.
Hoxie?
He's in command at Fort Dixon.
What happened to Colonel Morgan?
He went back to Washington.
Is Hoxie an experienced Indian fighter?
Nope.
Colonel Hoxie has no use for Indians.
He figures they're dumb, just because he can't read or write.
Colonel has plenty to learn. Black Hawk's just the critter to teach him.
Draw rein here. Wilson.
What's the matter?
Listen.
Hey, we're closer to the Indians than I thought.
Sounds as if the village is just ahead.
Easy, steady, big fella. We'll conceal our horses and go ahead on foot.
I wonder if any of the redskins saw us coming.
We'll soon know.
The guard who would have seen the approaching white men and sounded an alarm had left his post to ride to camp with Little Crow. He stayed in camp long enough to make sure his wounded comrade received the attention he needed. Then he returned to guard the trail. Suddenly, he heard the sound of a horse nearby. A few moments later, he found the place where Silver and the two other horses had been hidden. Then a twig snapped behind him. He turned, in time to take a smashing blow on the chin.
Oh, you got him, mister.
He's out cold.
You'll not stay that way long. We'll tie and gag him while he's unconscious.
Right. Now, good thing you spotted him before he saw us.
As soon as he's tied, I'll go ahead on foot and scout around.
Minutes later, the Lone Ranger returned to his friends.
What'd you find out, mister?
The camp's in a clearing ahead.
How many redskins are there?
About 500.
Oh, that's bad.
It would be worse if they had guns and ammunition. As it is, 100 armed men could surround the clearing and capture the Indians.
I'd feel a lot better if 100 armed men were here right now.
Darkness fell and the moon rose while the three men waited. Then an Indian came from the camp to relieve the guard who had been captured.
Hey, listen.
Yeah, that redskin's heading this way.
He's looking for the guard.
What'll we do?
I'll try to capture him before he sounds an alarm.
But the Indian's suspicions were aroused. He looked about uneasily and shouted to his friends in camp. In an effort to silence him, Floyd fired. The bullet hit its mark, but the shot was a mistake.
You jughead, why'd you fire?
I had to quiet that redskin.
Shot will bring every Injun in camp here.
We'll have to make a stand.
Against 500 redskins?
We can't reach the horses in time to get away.
They're coming after us.
Open fire!
A few of the Indians had loaded guns. They were firing toward the intruders when Chief Black Hawk realized the truth. He shouted to his braves.
Save ammunition! There are only 3 men behind trees. We surround them.
The Lone Ranger and his friends heard the chief's command. As he reloaded his gun, Alkali said,
We haven't a chance.
They'll rush us.
We'll go down fighting.
Alkali, listen! It's the army!
And they're coming this way.
Black Hawk and his men heard that bugle, too.
The Lone Ranger and his friends hurried forward and saw the Indians running toward their ponies. But at that moment, Colonel Hoxie and 300 hard-riding troopers reached the clearing. The ensuing battle was too one-sided to last long. Tomahawks, bows, arrows, and war clubs were no match for the revolvers and repeating rifles in the hands of the soldiers. Realizing the hopelessness of resistance, the Indians surrendered. As the uniformed men rounded up the renegades, Colonel Hoxie, Sergeant Flanders, and Tonto joined the Lone Ranger and his friends.
Mister, I'm mighty glad to see you again.
I'm even happier to see you, Jim. You got here just in time.
I figured you'd never get here.
We'd have been here sooner if I hadn't doubted Tonto's story.
Doubted it?
Yes. Mister, you and Tonto have done the Army a great service.
I'm glad we were able to help you, sir.
Thanks to you, these Indians will not have a chance to make trouble.
Now that you've captured them, Tonto and I'll ride to the nearest telegraph office to send a message to our friend the governor. Adios, Jim.
Goodbye, mister.
Alkali, I want to thank you and Floyd for standing by me.
Ah, forget it, mister.
I hope we meet again.
You'll be welcome at my ranch any time.
Thanks. Come on, Tonto.
Be ready, Kim.
Adios.
Goodbye.
Colonel Hoxie, that's the man I was telling you about.
Yes. I wonder what would have happened if he and Tonto had been scouting for Custer at the Little Bighorn.
Well, I have my own ideas about that, sir.
I know what you're thinking, Sergeant. I'll confess I agree with you. I don't think those Indians would have been able to fool the Lone Ranger.
This is a feature of the Lone Ranger Incorporated, created by George W. Trendle, produced by Trendle Campbell Muir Incorporated, directed by Charles D. Livingston, and edited by Fran Stryker. The part of the Lone Ranger is played by Brace Beamer.